In a world that constantly demands proof of who we are, there is a quiet truth that often goes unnoticed. External recognition is only a shadow of internal mastery. We are conditioned to chase validation, to seek applause, to measure our worth in comparison to others. Yet what is often forgotten is that recognition from the outside cannot sustain what has not been cultivated within. Without the foundation of self-mastery, the approval of others becomes fragile, fleeting, and incapable of holding weight when challenges arise. Self-mastery is not about perfection. It is about the discipline of knowing oneself deeply. To master the self means to confront the chaos of the mind, to tame the impulses of emotion, and to understand the patterns of desire and fear that govern behavior. When a person cannot regulate themselves internally, external recognition becomes dangerous. It creates dependency, a hunger that grows insatiable because it is never grounded in inner stability. A person without self-mastery seeks validation not as acknowledgement, but as survival. They cannot exist without the echo of others confirming their worth. To walk the path of mastery requires silence, solitude, and confrontation with discomfort. It is not glamorous. It is not filled with applause or celebration. Instead, it is the patient repetition of discipline, the continuous refining of habits, and the quiet observation of thought patterns. Self-mastery is forged in moments when no one is watching, in the decisions that appear insignificant but shape the structure of character. To resist distraction, to hold focus when the world invites you to scatter your attention, is a practice of mastery. To pause before reacting, to listen before speaking, to endure without complaint. These are not small achievements but the very pillars of inner strength. External recognition often comes as a result of achievement, yet true achievement is impossible without mastery of the self. Consider the artist who creates only for applause. Their work bends to the tastes of the crowd and they lose authenticity. Contrast this with the artist who has mastered their craft internally. Their recognition comes naturally, not because they chased it, but because they cultivated excellence from within. This is the principle at work in all fields of life: the athlete, the leader, the teacher, the thinker. Those who gain lasting recognition are those who do not depend on it. They are anchored in mastery first, and recognition follows as a reflection of that anchor. The struggle arises when the world convinces us to reverse the order. Many are tempted to seek recognition before mastery. They post without practice, they speak without understanding, they act without discipline. And while recognition may come quickly, it also vanishes quickly. Applause fades, and without mastery, the emptiness that follows becomes unbearable. This is why so many collapse when the spotlight disappears. They have built their identity on something that was never stable to begin with. Recognition was mistaken for mastery, and when recognition left, there was nothing solid to remain. To cultivate self-mastery is to turn inward with honesty. It is to admit weaknesses without shame, to face insecurities without denial, to observe desires without letting them control you. The one who practices mastery does not avoid struggle, they engage with it deliberately. They do not suppress emotions, but understand their roots. They do not seek shortcuts, but walk the longer road with patience. In this way, mastery creates dignity, a kind of invisible strength that radiates outward. Others may not see the hours of discipline, the sacrifices, the inner battles, but they feel the presence of mastery when it speaks, acts, or simply exists. Recognition gained through mastery is different. It is not fragile. It does not vanish with trends, nor does it depend on the changing opinions of others. It is recognition that reflects respect, not just popularity. The world bows to those who have mastered themselves because self-mastery cannot be faked. Confidence without arrogance, strength without aggression, wisdom without pride, these qualities cannot be imitated, they must be lived. Self-mastery also redefines the meaning of recognition itself. For the one who has mastered the self, recognition from others becomes secondary. They no longer crave it as fuel because they have already built their fire within. If recognition comes, if it does not, the inner stability remains. This independence is the essence of freedom. No applause can intoxicate them, and no criticism can break them. They are not swayed by external forces because they have already found a center that cannot be shaken. The journey of mastery is endless. To master the self is not a destination but a continuous unfolding. With each layer peeled back, another appears. With each discipline achieved, a new challenge arises. Yet this endless path is not exhausting, it is liberating. For every step in mastery reveals how much less dependent we are on recognition, how much more capable we are of standing firmly in our own being. External recognition is a byproduct, not a goal. It is a reflection of what has been established within, not the foundation. To confuse the two is to build on sand. To understand the order, self-mastery before recognition, is to build on rock. When the storms of life come, only the one who has built within remains standing. Recognition will come and go, but mastery remains. It is the anchor that holds through both silence and applause, through solitude and spotlight, through obscurity and fame. It is the beginning of true greatness, not because others say so, but because the self has been conquered. First, a desire is one of the most powerful forces in human existence. It is the spark that ignites ambition, the drive that pushes people to chase after their goals, the flame that can warm or burn depending on how it is handled. Desire alone, however, is never enough. Left uncontrolled, it becomes a fire that consumes rather than creates. It turns into restlessness, obsession, and impatience. This is why the path of wisdom and growth teaches that discipline must stand above desire. Discipline becomes the container that shapes desire into something purposeful, transforming wild impulses into directed energy. When a person is guided only by desire, their mind is scattered. They want one thing today, another tomorrow, and when difficulties appear, the same desire that fueled their initial enthusiasm abandons them. This is the cycle that so many experience. They start with excitement, they feel passion, but when obstacles arise, the desire fades and what remains is disappointment. Discipline changes this cycle. It is not dependent on mood, on motivation, or on fleeting emotions. Discipline is built on consistency, on choice, on structure. It does not wait for the right feeling, it acts because it has been decided beforehand. In every tradition of mastery, discipline is the foundation. A musician does not rely on the desire to play in order to practice. An athlete cannot wait for desire to train, otherwise their progress would collapse the moment fatigue arrives. The Shaolin monk does not meditate only when he feels like it, but because the practice itself is non-negotiable. Discipline is the compass that directs energy forward even when desire wavers. And in this relationship, it is discipline that strengthens desire, not the other way around. Desire without discipline is like water with no container. It spreads, it spills, it evaporates. It may look powerful in a single moment, but it cannot be held, it cannot be guided. Discipline provides the form that allows desire to be harnessed. Imagine the same water contained within a dam. It gains pressure, it produces energy, it becomes a source of life for thousands. The same principle applies to human potential. Desire is the water, discipline is the dam, and only together can they create real power. The world often glorifies desire. It is spoken of as passion, as inspiration, as the fuel for greatness. And while it is true that desire lights the initial flame, it is a fragile fire. How many times has a person felt inspired to change their life, to create something new, to pursue a dream, only to abandon it after a few days or weeks? The intensity of their desire was not enough. Without discipline, the fire burns quickly and leaves only ashes. It is the daily, sometimes repetitive, often unexciting act of discipline that carries the dream forward long after desire has faded. Discipline is not glamorous. It does not always feel exciting. It demands patience. It requires sacrifice. It asks for structure when the mind would prefer freedom. But within this structure lies strength. Discipline creates space for growth. It carves the pathway through chaos. It builds endurance where desire alone would collapse. And slowly, over time, discipline begins to shape the mind itself. It creates clarity. It brings stability. It strengthens focus. The desires that once controlled a person now serve them because discipline has placed them in order. In the practice of martial arts, discipline is above all else. A student cannot expect to achieve mastery if they train only when they desire it. The body must be trained daily, the mind must be sharpened continuously, the spirit must be tested through repetition. This repetition is not meant to kill desire, but to purify it. It removes the distractions, the impulses, the cravings that scatter attention. What remains is a focused desire aligned with discipline, powerful enough to cut through obstacles. The modern world makes the practice of discipline even more essential. Everywhere there are distractions designed to capture desire. Advertisements, entertainment, constant stimulation. Each one pulls attention in a different direction. If a person follows every desire, They are left with nothing but fragments of energy, scattered and exhausted. Discipline provides the shield against this. It says no when desire wants yes. It chooses direction when desire wants everything. It protects time, it preserves focus, and in doing so, it makes achievement possible. Discipline over desire does not mean rejecting desire completely. Desire is natural, it is part of being human. But discipline ensures that desire does not control the mind. It is the difference between being led and leading. When discipline stands above desire, a person becomes master of themselves. Their energy is not wasted on chasing illusions, but invested in what truly matters. And this investment, repeated day after day, becomes transformation. True freedom is not doing whatever desire demands. True freedom is having the discipline to choose what is necessary over what is comfortable. It is the strength to say yes to growth and no to distraction. It is the ability to continue when desire has already faded, to persist when the flame is no longer bright, to endure when the path feels heavy. This is the freedom that discipline brings. It may appear strict, it may appear limiting, but in reality, it is what unlocks the deepest potential. Discipline and desire will always exist together, but the question is which one leads. If desire leads, life becomes unstable, restless, and unfulfilled. If discipline leads, desire becomes purified, sharpened, and powerful. The choice between the two determines whether a person drifts aimlessly or walks with purpose, whether they burn out quickly or build something lasting, whether they are ruled by impulses or guided by wisdom. Grace and strength may appear as two opposite qualities, yet in truth they are inseparable, like two rivers flowing into one ocean. Strength without grace becomes rigid, harsh, and brittle. Grace without strength becomes fragile, fleeting, and unable to endure the storms of life. Together, they form a balance that not only sustains but also elevates the human spirit. This balance is not simply an outer appearance. It is cultivated through the mind, the body, and the energy that connects both. When one learns to embody grace within strength and strength within grace, life itself begins to unfold with harmony, resilience, and purpose. To understand grace in strength, one must first recognize that true strength is not found in domination or force, but in the ability to remain steady and centered while the world around us is shifting. The mountain does not stand tall because it resists the wind. It stands tall because it is grounded in the earth. Likewise, a person who is strong is not one who never bends, but one who bends without breaking. Grace enters this equation as the softening of the edges, the gentle flow that allows strength to be expressed without aggression. When grace enters strength, the energy transforms from being heavy and forceful into being steady and unshakable. Strength in grace is its counterpart. Grace is often seen as beauty in movement, the quiet elegance in action, but when grace is infused with strength, it no longer becomes fragile. It becomes enduring. It becomes a power that does not shout but speaks with silence. Consider the flow of water graceful, fluid, effortless. Yet within it lies the strength to carve valleys, to shape rocks, to sustain life. The strength hidden within grace is not immediately visible, but it is undeniable. A soft word spoken with conviction carries more weight than 1,000 words spoken with anger. A single act of kindness, backed by inner strength, ripples further than countless displays of power meant to intimidate. To cultivate grace in strength and strength in grace, one must begin with awareness. Awareness of the body, awareness of the breath, awareness of the thoughts that arise in the mind. The body teaches us strength, the breath teaches us grace. In physical training, the muscles are tested, endurance is built, and limits are pushed. But without awareness, this strength becomes blind force. When movement is accompanied by breath, when tension is balanced with relaxation, the body learns how to express power gracefully. In the same way, the mind learns strength through discipline, through the ability to remain focused and unwavering, while grace emerges from the space between thoughts, from silence, from the ability to let go of what is unnecessary. Grace in strength is visible in those who face difficulties without losing their calm. They stand firm, but their firmness does not crush others, it uplifts them. They carry their burdens not with complaint, but with quiet dignity. Their strength is not flaunted, it is simply present. And because it is infused with grace, it becomes inspiring rather than intimidating. On the other hand, strength in grace reveals itself in those who move through life with kindness, with gentleness, with openness, yet within them lies a depth of resilience that is unshakable. They appear soft, but their softness is not weakness. It is the softness of the bamboo that bends with the storm but never breaks. The integration of these two qualities cannot be rushed. It is a path of cultivation. At first, one may lean more towards strength, seeking to build discipline, structure, and resilience. At another stage, one may lean toward grace, seeking fluidity, acceptance, and harmony. But as awareness deepens, one realizes that neither quality is complete without the other. The warrior who learns compassion, the monk who learns endurance, the individual who learns to merge discipline with gentleness, these are the ones who embody the fullness of both. In daily life, opportunities to practice this integration appear constantly. When faced with conflict, one can choose strength without aggression, firmness without cruelty. This is grace in strength. When faced with setbacks, one can choose acceptance without surrender, softness without collapse. This is strength in grace. When speaking to others, tone and words can carry both. Firmness with respect, clarity with kindness. When facing oneself, discipline can be balanced with self-compassion, determination with patience. The deeper essence of grace and strength lies in energy. Energy that is stiff cannot flow. Energy that only flows without form becomes scattered. But when energy is both structured and fluid, it becomes powerful and alive. In martial arts, this is the essence of movement. Power that flows like water, grace that strikes like thunder. In meditation, this is the essence of stillness, strength that remains unmoved, grace that opens the heart. In life, this is the essence of living fully, walking with resilience yet leaving a trail of harmony. Grace in strength, strength in grace is ultimately the art of balance. It is the dance of yin and yang, the interplay of firmness and softness, of holding and letting go, of silence and sound. To embody this balance is to walk with confidence without arrogance, to move with gentleness without fragility, to stand firm without rigidity, to live with openness without losing direction. It is not something to be achieved once and for all, but something to be lived moment by moment, breath by breath, action by action. It is the silent wisdom of nature itself reflected in the human being who dares to cultivate both. In life, everything carries a measure of value. And value is not simply assigned, it is recognized through limits, through borders, through the understanding of where something begins and where it ends. A diamond shines brightly not only because of its clarity, but also because it has edges that give shape to its brilliance. Water flowing without a riverbank spreads endlessly and loses form, but when guided by boundaries, it becomes a river, powerful and purposeful. In the same way, human beings are recognized, respected, and understood not just by what they give, but by the lines they draw. Boundaries define value, for without them, what is precious becomes scattered, misused, or even invisible. When a person sets boundaries, they are not closing themselves off from the world. They are, in truth, affirming their worth. Imagine a garden. If there is no fence, no separation from the wilderness beyond, animals will trample through, weeds will overtake, and the flowers that once bloomed will lose their presence. Yet when the garden is enclosed with care, not to imprison but to protect, the blossoms are able to flourish. Boundaries serve this purpose. They declare that within this space lies something that matters. To live without them is to live without shape, without distinction, without the ability to preserve what is meaningful. Boundaries are often misunderstood as harsh or selfish acts, yet to say no is sometimes the highest form of yes to oneself. To refuse what diminishes you is to honor what strengthens you. To distance yourself from noise is to welcome silence. To guard your time is to respect your life. Boundaries are not barriers that keep love, kindness, or compassion away. Instead, they are frameworks that ensure these qualities can exist without being drained or distorted. Without boundaries, generosity turns into exploitation, patience becomes endurance of harm, and compassion can transform into weakness. The value of gold is not only in its luster, but also in its rarity. If gold was scattered endlessly across the ground, its brilliance would no longer inspire wonder. The same is true with energy, attention, and presence. When offered without limit, they become diluted. When shared with care, they remain potent. Boundaries remind others that your energy is not a resource to be consumed endlessly, but a treasure to be honored. They also remind you of your own responsibility to choose where you place yourself, to decide what you allow in, and to recognize that your time and space carry weight. There is a deep discipline in boundaries. It requires self-knowledge to say, this is who I am, and this is what I stand for. Many drift through life without clarity, accepting everything and everyone into their space, only to wonder why they feel exhausted, unseen, or undervalued. The absence of boundaries invites confusion, while their presence creates order. Just as the walls of a temple do not imprison, but elevate the sacred space within, so do personal boundaries frame and protect what is sacred in you. Consider the practice of martial arts. A master does not strike wildly in every direction. Precision, control, and timing define the effectiveness of each movement. Boundaries are the same. They are the conscious discipline of energy. They prevent scattering, and they allow for focus. When you hold your ground, when you define your limits, you are not closing yourself off from possibility. You are channeling your force toward what matters most. A river with banks cuts through stone, but a flood without borders brings only destruction. Boundaries are also silent teachers to those around you. By showing where you stand, you teach others how to stand with you. Respect is cultivated not through endless giving, but through the clarity of what will and will not be allowed. When someone sees that your time has value, they approach with more care. When they understand your silence is intentional, they begin to listen more deeply. Boundaries instruct without words, for they embody the message. This is important. This is meaningful. This cannot be overlooked. Yet boundaries are not fixed walls. They can shift, expand, or contract depending on growth, wisdom, and circumstance. A boundary set in fear becomes a cage, but a boundary set in self-awareness becomes a pathway to freedom. Knowing when to hold firm and when to open is itself an art. Just as seasons change, so do the needs of the spirit. At times, protection is required. At other times, openness is strength. But in both cases, the conscious act of defining where you stand remains at the heart of value. Boundaries are not only about interaction with others, but also about the relationship with oneself. There are internal boundaries, the lines drawn against destructive habits, the choices made to prevent the mind from wandering endlessly into negativity, the discipline of refusing to betray one's own principles. To say, I will not cross this line, is as powerful as declaring to others what they may not cross. These inner boundaries maintain integrity, for without them, external ones cannot truly exist. A person who does not respect themselves cannot demand respect from others. The strength of boundaries lies not in their hardness, but in their clarity. A boundary spoken softly, but lived consistently is stronger than one shouted in anger yet broken in practice. It is not about force, but about alignment. When words and actions meet, when what you allow and what you decline match your inner truth, the boundary becomes unshackable. And it is here where value emerges, not in the illusion of toughness, but in the authenticity of self-respect. Boundaries remind us that everything precious requires protection. A flame left unattended will burn out, but a flame sheltered with care can illuminate for hours. The human spirit, too, requires shelter. Without boundaries, the flame is extinguished by winds of distraction, misuse, or exploitation. With boundaries, it burns steadily, providing warmth and light not only for oneself but also for those who truly value it. Growth is not a destination, it is a process. A path that never ends, a rhythm that continues long after one stage of life has been reached. To grow is not to achieve a final form, but to allow yourself to remain fluid, adaptable, and open. When you commit to continuous growth, you begin to see life as a teacher in every moment. Every challenge, every failure, every success, and even the most ordinary days hold within them lessons that can guide you forward. The mind that seeks growth does not ask, "When will I be done?" but rather, "What can I learn here?" Learning is not bound by age, by profession, or by circumstance. It is not confined to classrooms, books, or lectures. True learning happens in the way you observe yourself and others, the way you reflect on your thoughts, the way you adapt when life places obstacles in your path. The growth-oriented mind does not resist the lessons that come disguised as difficulties, but embraces them as opportunities to refine character, sharpen perception, and deepen understanding. In this sense, growth is not external, it is internal transformation that later shows itself outwardly in how you live, how you speak, and how you respond to the world. The danger lies in believing that one has already arrived. To say, "I know enough," or "I am complete," is to close the door on the infinite possibilities that existence offers. The moment you stop learning, you stop expanding, and in that stillness, stagnation begins to form. Just as water must flow to remain fresh, so too must the human spirit move forward to remain alive. Growth requires humility, The humility to admit that no matter how much you know, there is always more. The world is far greater than the scope of your current understanding, and wisdom is not something you acquire once, but something you cultivate continuously, like a garden that must be watered daily. Continuous learning is not about collecting information endlessly. It is about deepening awareness, questioning assumptions, and applying insights in the way you live. Many people read, study, and gather facts, but this does not guarantee growth. True learning is tested in your actions, in how you respond when circumstances demand patience, when temptations call for discipline, when relationships ask for compassion. Growth cannot remain in the mind alone. It must express itself through choices and behaviors that reflect an expanded state of being. The path of growth requires both curiosity and courage. Curiosity to explore the unknown, to ask questions even when answers are not immediate. Courage to face what is uncomfortable, to unlearn what is no longer useful, and to let go of patterns that hold you back. In this way, growth is not always easy. It can feel painful when old layers of identity begin to fall away, when familiar beliefs no longer serve you, when you are called to step beyond what you thought was possible. Yet it is precisely in this discomfort that transformation is born. A life of continuous growth also requires discipline. It is not enough to grow when it feels convenient or when inspiration strikes. Real progress happens when you commit to daily practices, when you engage in reflection, when you return again and again to the lessons life presents. Discipline is the bridge between intention and change. Without it, knowledge remains dormant and potential remains unrealized. With discipline, every day becomes an opportunity to add a new layer of depth, to move a little closer to wisdom, to refine not just the outer skills, but the inner state of being. There is also a balance to be found in growth. To chase growth restlessly, to force learning in every moment, can lead to exhaustion. Growth is not about accumulation, but integration. It is about allowing lessons to settle into the core of who you are. Just as the body needs rest after exertion, the mind and spirit need stillness to digest what has been learned. Growth is not linear, it has seasons, moments of rapid expansion and moments of quiet consolidation. Both are essential, both are part of the cycle that keeps you evolving without burning out. The beauty of continuous growth is that it creates freedom. Freedom from the fear of failure, because failure becomes nothing more than another lesson. Freedom from the need for perfection, because you understand that life is about progress, not a flawless endpoint. Freedom from comparison, because you realize that your path is unique and your growth cannot be measured against another's. With this freedom comes peace, and with peace comes the ability to continue moving forward without pressure, but with purpose. In the journey of growth, relationships also play a crucial role. Every person you encounter is a mirror, reflecting back to you something about yourself, your patience, your triggers, your compassion, your pride. To learn from others is one of the fastest ways to grow, for they show you perspectives you could not see alone. To teach others what you have learned is equally important, for teaching solidifies understanding and deepens the lesson within yourself. Growth is not meant to be hoarded, it is meant to be shared, so that the cycle of learning continues not only within you but around you. When you choose continuous growth and learning, you align yourself with the rhythm of life itself. Nature never stops growing. Trees stretch toward the sky, rivers carve new paths, the earth shifts and evolves. You are not separate from this movement, you are part of it. To resist growth is to resist life, but to embrace it is to live fully, dynamically, and authentically. The willingness to learn keeps you alive not just in body, but in spirit. Constantly renewing your purpose and expanding your awareness, there is a language that requires no alphabet, no dictionary, no grammar, and no translation. It is a language older than speech itself, a current that moves silently between people, situations, and even within the natural world. This language is energy. Before we speak a single word, before we choose the sentences that carry our thoughts, something already communicates on our behalf. The way our body is held, the way our eyes meet or avoid contact, the vibration behind our silence, these all become part of a greater dialogue that transcends words. Energy does not wait for permission to speak. It is always speaking, whether we are aware of it or not. To understand why energy speaks louder than words, one must first observe the moments when words fail. Think of when someone says, "I'm fine," while their entire presence radiates sadness or unrest. The words are constructed to create a barrier, but the energy tells the truth. Words can be manipulated, shaped, and used to deceive, but energy is difficult to disguise. It leaks through the smallest cracks of expression, tone, and silence. The body carries memory. The breath reveals tension. The eyes reflect states of being that cannot be hidden behind carefully arranged syllables. In this sense, energy is not only louder, but far more authentic than the language we are trained to use. When entering a space, there is often no need to ask questions to know what atmosphere awaits. Some rooms feel heavy as if filled with invisible smoke weighing down the chest. Others feel light and uplifting, where even silence seems to hum with possibility. This is the collective energy of those within it. Before words are exchanged, the energy already announces what is present. It does not whisper. It speaks with clarity to anyone sensitive enough to listen. The body registers it immediately, even if the mind has not yet made sense of it. If energy is always communicating, then the question becomes, what message are we sending into the world each moment? Many believe that what they say defines their influence, but often the unspoken defines it even more. Confidence that does not need to shout, presence that does not demand attention, calmness that settles the restless around you. These are not created by words, but by energy cultivated within. It is why someone can enter a room without speaking and still alter the entire atmosphere. Their words may follow, but their energy has already spoken. This is why practices of inner alignment become so essential. Without them, words and energy move in opposite directions. A person may declare peace yet carry turbulence inside. They may speak of trust while radiating insecurity. They may preach wisdom while vibrating with ego. When this misalignment exists, others may not always consciously recognize it, but they will feel it. The message received is not the one spoken, but the one silently transmitted. To live with awareness is to ensure that words and energy do not contradict each other, but become one unified expression. Consider the natural world, where energy flows without the filter of language. A river does not explain its persistence, yet its current communicates movement and resilience. A mountain does not speak, yet its stillness conveys strength and endurance. The sun does not announce its intention to rise, yet its light transforms the entire horizon. The energy of these forces communicates far more effectively than words ever could. In the same way, human beings are constantly expressing without speech. Our energy either nourishes or depletes, uplifts or diminishes, expands or constricts. Awareness of this truth brings responsibility. If one's energy affects not only oneself, but also the environment and others within it, then the cultivation of energy is no longer a personal matter, but a collective responsibility. Anger left unchecked radiates outward, infecting others with the same restlessness. Calmness nurtured within spreads peace, stabilizing even those who are unsettled. What is carried inside is never truly contained. It finds ways to move outward and shape the unseen fabric of interaction. Silence offers the greatest opportunity to witness this. In silence, there are no words to distract, no sentences to decorate meaning. Only energy remains. Two people may sit in silence together. One silence feels uncomfortable, tense, filled with unspoken conflict. Another silence feels healing, connected, as if the absence of speech itself becomes a form of presence. What makes the difference is not the absence of words, but the energy inhabiting the silence. This demonstrates once again that energy speaks first, speaks last, and speaks most truthfully. To refine the energy one carries is not a matter of performance, but of discipline. Breathwork, meditation, movement, and self-observation are not abstract practices, but tools to tune energy into coherence. Just as an instrument must be tuned to create harmony, so must the body and mind align to project clarity. Without tuning, words become noise, disconnected from the source of authentic communication. With tuning, even minimal words resonate with power, and sometimes no words are needed at all. The greatest leaders, healers, and teachers throughout history understood this. Their power did not come from elaborate speeches or persuasive sentences alone. It came from the presence they carried. Their energy filled the space before their words ever reached the ears of others. People felt them before they heard them. That feeling left a lasting impact, often remembered more vividly than the actual words spoken. Energy is the root, while words are the branches. Without strong roots, branches cannot sustain themselves for long. To listen to energy requires stillness. The noise of the world often distracts from what is constantly being communicated beneath the surface. But when one slows down and observes with sensitivity, the language of energy becomes unmistakable. A smile may not match the eyes, a voice may not match the vibration, a promise may not match the intention. Observing these subtleties reveals truths that words alone conceal. And in becoming attuned to these truths, one also becomes aware of the energy one radiates outward. It is through this awareness that transformation begins. The question is no longer what words are spoken, but what energy is lived. The outer expression becomes a reflection of the inner state, and the language of energy becomes clear to all who encounter it.